All right, let's start with Krishna Karnam's question from Poland. He says, according to Srimad Bhagavatam 2.10.6, liberation means being situated in one's original position. Muktir hidvanayata rupam svarupena vyavastiti. If, according to Lord Chaitanya, the natural position of a living entity is to be an eternal servant of Krishna, Chiraswarup Krishna Nityadas, then why do Gaudiya devotees include sayujya mukti as one of the 5 kinds of liberation when there is no possibility of serving Bhagavan there?
Thank you for the question. The scriptures mentioned 5 types of liberation: Salokya, Sharsti, Samipya, Sarupya, and Sayujya. And there are different interpretations of what Sayujya means. And that holds true even within Gaudiya Vaishnavism. For example, in his Govinda Bhashya, which is a commentary on Vedanta Sutra for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Baladev Vidyabhushan explains Sayujya differently than Krishnadas Kaviraj explains Sayujya Mukti in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Baladev, his explanation, it seems to accord more with other prominent Vaishnava Sampradayas, like the Madhva Sampradaya or the Ramanuja Sampradaya. Excuse me. And he explains that Sayujya Mukti is the basis of the other 4 types of mukti, in that it constitutes a oneness with Bhagavan, a realization of the oneness in quality, if you will, that one is constituted with Godhead. So, to give an example, a spark of fire and fire are both fire. Obviously, they're different. You can't cook and heat your house with a spark. Excuse me. But you can with a fire. Mm-hmm. But qualitatively, the spark is fire-like, nonetheless. So he says that all types of mukti have sayujya as their basis. Mm-hmm. And then, in contrast, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami refers to sayujya mukti as a identification on the part of jnanis, those who are predominantly engaged in the path of jnana. Jnana here, of course, means the likeness between Atma and Paramatma, between jiva and Brahman. Same idea of that Baladev Vidyabhushan is bringing up. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that that on the path of Gyan, having the likeness between the jiva and Bhagavan, Atma and Paramatma, that likeness, the realization of that being the goal, seeing as the jiva doesn't thinks itself matter, thinks it's temporal, thinks it's subject to the transformations of material nature. It dies, for example, or if you give it an anesthetic, it disappears. Only thing in that instance, what really disappears is where the Atma is consciously focused. It's absorbed in a material conception of itself, and that material conception of itself is under an influence, anesthesia, that doesn't afford it any longer experience of that physical realm and sense of self. If it was preoccupied entirely with its own self, then just like in near-death experiences, similarly during anesthesia, someone could be a devotee, a mystic, could be awake. So at any rate, I'm digressing for a moment, but likeness between Atma and Brahman, this is the ideal. To realize this is the ideal in the Gyan Marg. So, excuse me, given that Brahman feature of the Absolute, as the Gaudiyas think of it, is a feature of the Absolute that one could realize, and in doing so, realize nothing more than one's likeness with Bhagavan. One would not realize the simultaneous, from our point of view, difference from Bhagavan. While the Advaita Vedanta posits that there is no jiva ultimately, there is only Brahman, and Brahman ultimately has no distinguishing characteristics, qualities, he's indeterminate. When the jiva does away with it, his illusion is done away with, it realizes that it's Brahman. Now the Gaudiyas say that doesn't happen because there is a jiva, so the jiva is not to be extinguished. There is a real thing called the jivatma, and it has likeness to the Absolute. And if that's all one's interested, then one can enter into, in Krishnadas's terms, sayujya mukti, which is what the question refers to, this idea of sayujya mukti. One can enter into sayujya mukti, and what happens there is one's self is not extinguished. It's not an illusion like Advaita Vedanta posits, but it identifies wholly with its likeness between itself and Brahman and experiences no difference. Experiences no difference between itself and Brahman, and it has no experience of the variegatedness and the differentiating qualities of Brahman in the form of Paramatma, for example, and Bhagwan. Aspects of the Absolute are realized by different approaches rather than Gyan. Of course, now we should note that from the Gaudiya perspective, to attain this idea of sayujya mukti on the Gyan Marg, one needs some bhakti to do so, some bhakti, provisionally, right? So there are different opinions about sayujya mukti. You're referring to the opinion of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And that's not to say that earlier theologians of the Sampradaya don't, or they differ from Krishnadas. I think they tend not to. And Baldeva's perspective seems to be a little bit of a outlier, comparatively. But your question is, if that idea of sayujya mukti includes no service to Bhagavan, and the jiva is inherently a servant of Bhagavan, then how can it be called liberation? Well, in the verse that you refer to from the 10th chapter of the second canto of the Bhagavatam, I think it's the 6th verse, believe Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments there that that this realization could be either differentiated or non-differentiated. So he acknowledges that there is or indeterminate, let's say, an indeterminate or determinate, so that the jiva can realize that it's this aspect of itself which is sufficient to free it from material conditioning. This aspect means it's non-difference, it's qualitative oneness with Bhagavan. Now, if you realize your qualitative oneness with Bhagavan, because that's what your goal is, you're not going to be any longer influenced by the illusory notion that there's a difference between you and Bhagavan, based on the material perception, which is an illusion. So, therefore, it's a form of liberation, but it's clear in Gaudiya Vaishnavism that there are different degrees of liberation, different degrees of penetration into transcendence, right? So this is like to poke your head into transcendence, and having gone there, you're not going to come out. And because you've gone there in a particular way, Bhagavan affords that to those who so desire. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, commenting on this, refers to this type of liberation as not incomplete. I forget the word that he uses. But maybe, I don't think it's incomplete, but something to, maybe a better word, but not full, let's say.
Partial?
Well, he doesn't say you're fully liberated. You're fully liberated. But all that you are, it has not become clear. Therefore, we find, to support Bhaktivinoda's position, that Sanatana Goswami, in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, has made clear and cited scriptural support for the idea that those who are in sayujya mukti can progress within transcendence from there to Vaikuntha, active service to Bhagavan, either Shantaras, which would be appreciation of the beatific form of Bhagavan and acknowledging of a difference between oneself and Bhagavan, or Dasya Bhakti would be active service and interest in, love for, appreciation for the qualities of Bhagavan and Leelas and so forth and so on. So I believe that Sanatana Goswami, in making this point, has even cited Shankaracharya in Advaita Vedanta. So I don't have those quotes at the tip of my tongue, but there, and I believe also in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami has also, I believe, if I recall correctly, said something to the same effect. I have to look that up. But it's a state, anyway, it's a status of mukti because you're not in material existence anymore. All that you are as a servant of Bhagavan, however, it may not be realized. Now, some people try to say, well, that's a form of service to being. But I don't agree with that. I agree with Bhaktivinoda's position. It's a kind of a form of, like you woke up, but you didn't go outside yet. You woke up from your sleep, you're awake, and it's fantastic to be awake compared to what your sleeping life and what your nightmares were about. Everything's okay. It's all right. I'm safe. I am. I be. I thought I was going to die. That was my nightmare. I am. But you haven't gone outside, and you may not. You may not. How will such a person who's so preoccupied with this one aspect, my likeness with Bhagavan, which is, significant, but preoccupied with that, and with the type of sadhusanga that fosters that as the be all and end all, that one-mindedness, difficult to go beyond that, if you will, right? Maybe even someone in the stage of practice who's preoccupied with that and has given up all other material desires and only one-minded in that, it's going to be difficult to convince that person of the virtues of bhakti. It'd be easier to convince somebody who has got material desires. They're easier to give up than the desire to give them all up that's been accomplished, right? So that's a hard nut, that kind of guy, those gyanis, it's hard to get to their head, to their heart through their head. But it's possible. It's possible by the mercy of Bhagavan. And I like to give the example. Let's say that you were influenced by a jnani with regard to Hinduism, Vedanta, self-realization, and so on and so forth, concepts of reincarnation, karma, the whole world of fascinating world of Vedanta, the world of consciousness, if you will, by a person, a sadhu, who attained that type of, eventually left the world and attained that videha mukti as in sayujya mukti, as described by Krishna's Kaviraj Swami. There he is. Now you, meanwhile, are in this world, and subsequently you had the sadhu sangha of great Vaishnavas. And so your understanding of Vedanta has been developed, nuanced, and so forth. And the ideal and the understanding of Vedanta that your initial preceptor had, you have conceptually entered into a larger picture of the nature of the self. But still, that person helped you, so you have affection for him or her. You think fondly of them. So as you become more and more advanced, still your thoughts of them or an appreciation of them is there. So because you have become very advanced in bhakti and you appreciate that person, then Krishna gives attention to that person in sayujya, pulls him out. That's the idea. So it is a form of mukti, but it's, I wish I could remember Bhaktivinoda's term. It's in his, I think it's in his tattva, I can't remember the book now, tattva.
The Bhakti Tattva Vivek?
It's not Bhakti Tattva Vivek. He might say it in there too, but he gives like 10 teachings or something like that. Das Mula, I think it may be. Das Mula Tattva, something like that. So you can look there. I hope that helped. If there's a further follow-up on that, I'll be happy to entertain it.
Thank you. That's quite interesting. So the next question is from Krishna Das.
Okay.
Good morning, Guru Maharaj.
Morning.
So my question is in relation to a quote that I recently came across from Srila Sridhara Maharaja. I was wondering if you could comment on. So the quote goes as follows. Vrindavan is for shallow thinkers. The real place to do bhajan is Kuruksetra, since there Srimati Radhika is in total need of assistance and help because she meets Sri Krishna again after a very long time. And I guess that was a bit confusing to me because I'd never heard of that sort of idea before. I guess most of the time I hear Gaudiyas focus on like Vrindavan or Navadvip as like the places where they retire to do bhajan and things of that nature. And yeah.
Yes. One has to think, what is Vrindavan? What is Vrindavan? So if Vrindavan, if the Ishwari of Vrindavan is Radha, as it is, in other words, Vrindavan Ishwari, right? Krishna is bowing to her. Prabhupada used to say that every religion is teaching that God is the most worshipable person. And we're teaching about the worshipable person of God, who God worships. That is Radha. I remember years ago, I was visiting with Chaitanya Goswami of the Radharaman Goswami lineage, coming from Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And he told me that he had met Prabhupada when he was young. And Prabhupada had come, I think, for the first time to Vrindavan. And there was some commotion about him and so forth, and excitement. Who is he? And another major visit, if you will, from the Caitanya Saraswati Sampradaya, or the Bhakti Vinod Paribar. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura had come there earlier, and he was not understood by many of the sadhus. He had come with two sannyasi disciples who were dressed like priests with collars, like shaved heads and tilak. And it was one of his ways of thinking, of innovating for talking to the British, and so forth. And the Bharavahi sects there, those who were externally only, or nominally, if you will, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they took exception, threw stones at his parakaram parties. But the Radharaman Goswamis did do that. They accepted him, they acknowledged him. It's worth noting also that in Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's debate, in which he represented the position of Bhakti Vinod and Gaudiya Vaishnavism, debate which is superior, Vaishnavism or Brahmanism, Vaishnavism or Varnashram. It was a big debate in Bengal. Bhaktisiddhanta was supported by the leading member of the Radharaman Goswami sect at the time. So Prabhupada told us that if you want to learn about deity worship, learn from the Radharaman Goswamis. And he had a relationship with some of them also. But at any rate, Chaitanya Goswami, I was speaking with him, and he said that he was telling me how when Prabhupada came, and he was fascinated by Prabhupada. He wasn't sure, what he was all about, because he's a little different. And he had these Western followers, a few of them. So he said, I asked him, Swamiji, how can we realize Krishna, something to that effect? And Swamiji said, well, you have to please Radha. And then I knew, he said, he was so excited when then I knew, he's a Gaudiya. Yes. So this is the Vrindavan, right? So what Puja Pachita Maharaj is saying is that that we should be concerned with finding the necessity of Radha. Wherever we can find the greatest necessity of Radha, that's where we want to be. And by what I'm saying, that is Vrindavan, right? So it's at Kuruksetra is a different location from Vrindavan, but it's at Kuruksetra that the Vrindavan, the significance of Vrindavan is also brought out. Morman Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying during the Rath Yatra, and he is in the mood of Radha at Kuruksetra and teaching, my mind and Vrindavan are one and the same. You are on my mind, talking to Krishna, so you must be in Vrindavan. We can't be anywhere else. So, in a broader sense, Vrindavan is a consciousness, right? A particular consciousness. One way or another, it's the way to Krishna. His heart is through Radha. So I think that the idea that the location if you will, in the holy place, sacred geography, let's say, of Kuruksetra is superior ontologically than Vrindavana is not what Sridhara Maharaja is saying. If you look at what he's saying that the necessity of serving, the necessity of Radha, wherever that is, that's where we want to be. And that really is the essence of Vrindavana. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Kuruksetra ki jai. Okay.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. That's very helpful.
Rathayatra ki jai, right? That's the teaching. Okay.
The next question is from Chandralila Devi Dasi. She left this question on the Sri Chaitanya Sangha Facebook group. And she says, does making commitments help us develop love? Or should we make commitments based on the feelings we already have in the context of looking for sincerely performing seva?
I'm sorry, can you read it once more?
Hold on.
Making commitments. There's a question about making.
She's basically asking, like, should we first focus on duty, or should we first have feelings and then do our duty? She says, does making commitments help us develop love, or should we make commitments based on the feelings we already have? And that, she says, this is all in the context of looking to sincerely perform seva.
Well, it's probably somewhere in between. Should make commitments based on the feelings that we have, but we have an ideal also. So we have to apply ourselves and commit ourselves according to our level of realization, right? Our adhikar. I think that's in one sense what you're talking about. But also in the context of our adhikar, we are aspiring for something more. We're aspiring for higher adhikar, right? So, so somewhere in between, we should take some steps, right? Try to increase our adhikar and our commitments. Of course, I mean, should I make a commitment that I should chant 64 rounds when I really don't have the adhikar to do so? No, right? That you make a commitment beyond your adhikar, then you're not going to be able to live up to that commitment, and then you'll be discouraged altogether. That's one way of looking at it. The other side is Tyaktva Sadharmam Sharanam Bhujam Harer Bhajana Pakvoto Patet Todi Yatra Kvabadram Buddha Mushkikim Kovartapta Bhajatam Sadharma. Anyway, a long time from the Narad Bhagavatam, 12 or so verses of the Bhagavatam, where Narad is speaking to Vyas, Chakvasvadharmam. It's similar. He says, well, what if you give up your, you apply yourself beyond your eligibility? Then you're stuck, and then you fail. Then what's your position? And Narad says, it's better than it was. It's better than it was. You tried. This the verse, like, what if I give up the varnashram to take up, spiritual life, but I'm not. I don't have the full adhikar to do so, and so I fall down. Well, Narad's statement is, well, you because it's actually spiritual. If it's bhakti, then however far you did go, you'll pick up there where you left off, right? So there's eternal benefit. And Narad, of course, is, there he is in the Bhagavatam. He was given 100 sons of Daksha, householder Daksha, for Narad to train them in spiritual principles as brahmacharis so that they could become good grihastas and so forth. And Narad preached to them and said, why should you become grihastas at all? Might as well stay as brahmacharis. And Daksha was a little perturbed by that, but these eccentric sadhus, he thought we have to accommodate them. So, okay. So we got another 100 sons, gave those 100 sons to Narad and said, please train these. So Narad did the same thing. They all remained as brahmacharis. And that blew the circuits of Daksha. He thought, what kind of religion is this? This guy's teaching them to, they're just young boys to give up married life and just, what are their chances of success? This is a corruption of religion and so on. So he had that idea. And he cursed Narada Muni that he would never be able to stay in one place for more than 3 days. So he's constantly wandering. He took it as a blessing. And so forth. So that side is there too. So we want to be careful, I guess I should say, that in committing ourselves relative to our adhikar, where we're actually at, is important, but we have to be careful in doing so that we don't become complacent. And that we don't think that where we're at is sufficient. We want to grow, we want to improve. And so make a little more commitment. So let's give an example. We function, we practice, we make commitments to practice relative to our adhikar. But then holy days come as an opportunity to increase for a day. For a day, you can chant 64 rounds and fast. And for a day, whatever, for a month, for Kartik, you can add an extra vow that you couldn't follow all the time, but you do it for a month. So these are ways that are built into the system to help us commit beyond the level of our adhikar incrementally so that we don't become complacent and our adhikar further develops. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. I have to say it's a little refreshing to hear that, to be reminded of that statement by Narada Muni, because there's so much of this thinking now that, you have to always be so balanced psychologically, and that's the highest form of devotion. You're always so well situated. But Narada is saying, no, you're actually better off. Not that I'm saying that everybody should go beyond their adhikar all the time, but I guess I've done it plenty in my own life, so it feels kind of good to hear. Yeah,
and you get some scars from that. There's no loss in that sense. You may not be able to sustain, and that may be problematic from a societal point of view. It may be a little problematic psychologically, it's possible, but from an eternal point of view, well, there's some benefit there to be realized in time.
Yeah, nice.
Muni Jai.
Jai. So the next question is from Sajan.
Sajan, good to see you.
Same here, Maharaj. Dandavats. So yeah, no, it's just been wonderful hearing your replies to the last two inquiries there, and so kind of like along following on the track of the ongoing progressive subjective evolution of consciousness. I loved so much in Srila Guru Maharaj's first book that came out in English, the Search for Sri Krishna, Reality, the Beautiful. That was, he meant Jesus was not a stagnant kind of concretized, conception, and that he also was he had the opportunity for ongoing subjective evolution in his particular expression of the one Godhead. And so I was just kind of wondering, could the same be said, because we wouldn't realistically imagine that neither Jesus nor anyone would have like an advantage that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not have. So along those lines, could we say that what Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu also kind of spoke or expressed, or when he was with us in the world some 550 years ago, that there was also room for him to have different perspectives, different feelings, different types of ideas or suggestions even which he did not express 550 years ago in his particular sociocultural environment that he appeared in.
So let's say he would, Jesus said something like, "There's more, but I cannot tell you now," or something.
Ah, yes, yes, indeed.
Well, I think that the concept that Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj Guru Maharaj was talking about there is not something that we apply only to everybody who's not a Gaudiya Vaishnava, and every Gaudiya Vaishnava is already static, they're there. And everybody else maybe grow and progress, get there and stop, and it stops there, because the very nature of that ideal in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the prem, is said to be full and simultaneously ever expanding. So this is a very dynamic idea of eternity, because if something's eternal, well, you think it's got to be always there. But here there's growth within eternality, unlimited. So, and when we speak about Krishna, let's say Rupa Goswami is given 64 qualities of Krishna. Jiva Goswami is given, I think, 84 or something like that. And there's, I think, besides the 64 that Rupa Goswami is given, and he quotes a verse from Bhagavatam that gives more. Anyway, so the point is that there are unlimited, Krishna has unlimited qualities. Krishna is unlimited to realize himself, the depths of himself, and so on. Now, we don't know in human society, since its inception, whatever, of any other conception of the Godhead that is more full than Krishna. And that's our analysis, and the Goswamis try to be pretty objective about that, right? They make a good argument for it. Now, so there may be a stopping point there, but the point of the stopping point is there's no stopping in that point, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, and we see, for that matter, in the Chaitanya Sampradaya, that since the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, insights have come out, and so forth, that maybe were there in a seed, but weren't fully developed, and so on. New Leelas, new members.
New members.
Upa Kumar is entering the Leela for the first time, and there's a Leela, that he's entering the Leela. So
yes.
Member, and with him comes a new Leela. So, and that Leela is eternal at the same time. So these things certainly don't fit between the ears, but there's room for them in the heart, if you will. So, yeah. If the dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began in modern history, if you will, 500 years ago, that's a short period of time, and there's much room for more insight to come within a certain context, I guess. I mean, I'll give you another example. Rupa Goswami mentions 8 sattvika vikar, becoming transformation, sattvika existential transformations, involuntary transformations of ecstasy, weeping, horripilation, trembling, and so forth. He said, there are others, but they're so rare, I'm not going to talk about them. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited some of them, like perspiring blood, and so who knows? It's a world of ecstasy, right?
Yes.
Where Jiva Goswami says, there the talking is singing, the walking is dancing. What must be the dancing? What must be the singing? His own mind is blown by the whole concept. So it's very dynamic, and the dynamism that the Guru Maharaj, Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj, speaks of with regard to Jesus, it applies to ourselves, our God, Krishna himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I mean, look at the Chaitanya Leela. I mean, everything about Krishna Leela is there in the Bhagavatam. There's no overt, explicit mention of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and another Leela inside of the Leela. But there it is. There's this further development. What's next? Be prepared for an exciting ride, right? However fresh, and new insights and experiences. What we think Krishna consciousness to be now It's that, and but quite a bit more, and it'll always be a little bit more. Jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai.
All right. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Anything else? Another question?
Yes, there's a question from Abhay Krishna. He's not on the call today, but he left this last week, or sent me this question. He says, Dear Guru Maharaj, I have a question regarding worshipping the faith of the Guru.
Worshipping the faith of the Guru?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
In the early stages of our practice, we can start to feel that our budding faith is our greatest treasure, offering us the beginning of a new ground to stand on, a ground outside of the mind's control over us. I think we can get a sense that this new ground is vastly superior to the mental realm we were previously restricted to, even if in our early stages we still have to fight the mind to submit at times. My question is, if we can look to our Guru's faith, which is vast and heavy, the Guru whose mind has completely submitted to its proper place to serve his faith, and see that faith as if a deity that we can worship, finding confidence in seeing the full-blown faith in our Guru and worshiping that faith, and hoping so that with so doing it will also increase our own faith.
He has a nice way of talking about this, doesn't he? That was quite nice, Abhay. But yeah, I would answer your question affirmatively, and I would say also that in one sense, the progression in spiritual life in Gaudiya Vaishnava terminology largely is a further growth of one's faith. To illustrate this or support this, Rupa Goswami has described 3 levels of adhikar: Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam, neophyte, intermediate, and superlative. And he's distinguished each from the other by the measure of faith that is involved, and the standing in faith. And faith is, yes, standing, because as we know, the Gita says, Shraddha ayam purusha, a person is their faith. Faith is the animating principle. So this is one example of how the growth of our faith is what we're involved in. Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj used to refer to the Paravyom, the world beyond mind and senses, the real world, if you will, as planets of faith. And conversely, this is the realm of doubt, no doubt about it, right? So if his reasoning was simple but profound, if there's a realm of doubt, world of doubt, there must be a world of faith. And in the world of doubt, there must movement must be restricted. Suspicion, he used to say, leads to suspension. If there's a doubt, then we're not. The movement is not free. It's being. It's a kind of a proceed with caution perspective. So, given clearly that such a realm exists and we're in it, he reasons there must be a realm free from doubt. And what it must be like. That is what Vrindavana is, free movement. We call it home. So home is homeland. When you're home, then you're not proceeding with caution, right? You're amongst those who love you. Mother says, eat this. You don't go, what's in it? Suspicious and so forth, right? So at home, then the heart is functioning, and the doubting, which is a function of intellect, reason, is put to rest. This reason is more of a problem than it is a solution. We have it, we can use it to our advantage, but it's very easy to be used by it and abused by it. And it's very subtle. To be abused by your senses, it's more apparent that you're being abused by your senses or by your thoughts, thoughts. But by reasoning, we can be abused, but it's less apparent to us that that's what's happening. Looks like we're doing good for ourselves. So you can reason yourself out of spiritual life, for example. Reason you don't exist. You can reason that you don't exist. And if you were to act according to reasoning, well, then, talk to Camus. That's what he did. He walked his talk, so he committed suicide. What was the question again? Faith. So there must be a realm free from doubt. And what it must be like. And he called it inappropriately so, I would say, planets of faith. Again, this is giving faith. Faith is something substantial, like you said in your question. It's a real ground to stand on. It's more firm than the ground of the mind, the ground of just of thoughts about things, all of which are here today and gone tomorrow. This is shaky ground. So, of course, there are different kinds of faith in different modes of nature, but we're talking about transcendental faith, right? Faith from the world of faith. And the Guru embodies that kind of faith. And so if faith is, in its development, is synonymous with the development of bhakti, as I'm explaining, then a perfect faith, it expresses itself as bhava. Perfect faith is expressed as bhava. One's faith is fully developed, want to be animated, faith being the animating principle, by bhava. And so, with regard to your question, our Guru mantra involves two things. Guru Devaya Vidmahe. This is a petition that Prachodaya, may I come to, it's a very Prachodaya, very difficult word to understand. Maybe to translate, may I come aware of, maybe come to understand Vidmahe Guru, the truth about Guru Tattva. Krishna, Guru Devaya Vidmahe. So it's a petition that may I have the sukriti to understand Guru Tattva, this principle, elusive, difficult, one hand, and Krishnanandaya Dhimahi. At the extent which I've understood Guru Tattva, then let me Dhimahi, meditate on the faith of my Guru, his or her Ananda, Krishnanandaya Dhimahi, the Ananda of the Guru, the Bhava of the Guru. This is the animation driven by fully developed faith. So in this sense, daily, to put it in your terms, we do meditate through the Guru mantra, our Guru mantra, Guru Gayatri, this is Guru Gayatri, part of it, that I've mentioned the words. We do meditate on the faith of our Guru, the Bhava of our, may I become absorbed in meditation. This is the appeal on the Ananda of my Guru. This is similar to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Guru Vastakam, Sakshad Haritvena, Samasta Shastra. All the scriptures say it. The Guru is one with God. Sakshad Hari. He's Sakshad Hari, directly Sakshad Hari himself. Kintu, however, he's Priya, he's dear to Krishna. He's directly Krishna, and he's dear to Krishna. How can he be both? So first we need to understand he's directly Krishna. It means you better pay attention here. I remember standing next to Prabhupada, as I did in early days in New Dwarka, when he'd give his class in the morning on his right-hand side. There I was every morning, and one morning he said, so the Guru is the incarnation of Krishna's mercy. Just like, wow, where did, here's where I, we wanted Krishna's mercy. This is where it is. There's personified here. I should pay attention here. And so Sakshad Hari is another like powerful statement. He is directly Hari. She is directly Hari. So it means you better give all attention here. Now, if you give all attention here in due course, it's going to be apparent to you that the Guru is animated by a particular bhava, right? And so then you want to relate to the Guru relative to his or her bhava. You may have the same bhava. You may possibly have a different bhava. But still, that meditating on the Guru's bhava doesn't change. I'll give you an example of that. Dukhi Krishnadas, the disciple of Srila Chaitanya, who was the disciple of Gauridas Pandit, a Sakya-Rasa lineage coming from Nityananda Prabhu. He was in Vrindavana as Dukhi Krishnadas, and he had a mystic experience, and Gopi blessed him with Gopi Bhav. And he was sweeping a place of leelas, and he found a bangle or something like that. And this Gopi appeared and said, oh, my mistress, Radha, lost that. Thank you for finding that. So he had this vision, and she took it and pressed it on his forehead, and it made a tilak kind of mark. And it was indelible. So Hridaya Chaitanya said, well, why are you wearing this tilak? Nobody's ever seen this tilak before. This is weird. You got to have a kind of tilak. And anyway, it turned out that his experience was verified. He fell into a trance, and in the trance, Subal, who was the guru of Hridaya Chaitanya, appeared and told him, tell your guru this, because only someone who heard it from me would know. No third, or him, or Hridaya Chaitanya, no third person would know. So when Dukhi Krishnadas came to external consciousness, he told Hridaya Chaitanya this, whatever it was, and Hridaya Chaitanya could understand that in his meditation he had actually met Subal. And so he was blessed. Yes, you pursue Gopi Bhav. And he, Dukhi Krishnadas, remained in a position eternally of the disciple of Hridaya Chaitanya. He didn't say, oh, you're in Sakya Bhav, so I'm going to get another guru, my other guru. So anyway, that's just a side point. Prabhupada, obviously, as he stated publicly and privately, his ideal was Sakya Bhav, and Bhaktisiddhanta was in Madhurya Bhav. Still, he meditated on the bhav of his guru. Thus he became Narmasaka. So anyway, we do that. We meditate on that my guru has certain bhava, and she's standing on the ground of that. Let me stand on that same ground in one position or another, but that corresponds with how Krishna would like to accept service from me. So it's a nice question, it was nicely worded, much appreciated. I hope the answer is helpful. Krishna.
Thank you.
Dhimahi.
Good. So let's see. Oh, a small correction. Camus actually did not kill himself. He died in a car accident, but probably he would have gotten to it around to it at some point.
Who died in a car accident?
Camus, you mentioned he killed himself, but he actually did not.
Oh, I guess he wanted to, but
Yeah.
it happened.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a couple kind of shorter questions. Atmacharan asked, this was actually from last week, so it was connected to something, but it's still worth asking. He was asking, what would be a good book source? What would be a good source to better understand the concept of Mahashakti?
Well, I don't know per se what you are referring to by the term Mahashakti. What comes to mind is Radha is the fullest expression and embodiment, personification of the Swarup Shakti. Swarup Shakti is the great Shakti. If you will, Maha means great. It overwhelms Krishna. It causes Brahman, who's everywhere, to move. Brahman, who knows everything, to wonder about some things, to be in doubt about some things. Does she loves me? She loves me not. I'm not sure. Right? This is the power of the Swarup Shakti. That's the Mahashakti. And Gaudiya Vaishnavism is all about that Shakti. Every book, it's in every book. So without, further clarification of exactly what you mean by Mahashakti, looking at it from this angle as a reference to the Swarup Shakti, the fullest, there are many ways in which that Swarup Shakti expresses itself. Bhakti is the essence of the Swarup Shakti, and Radharani is the fullest embodiment and personification of that Shakti. And as I say, Gaudiya Vaishnavas is all about Radha. So forgive me if I'm not answering your question sufficiently, but it's only due to lack of understanding what particularly you're referring to. So given my example, well, you could read perhaps from a Leela point of view, you could read Madhav Mahotsava of Jiva Goswami, where Radharani is crowned as the queen of Vrindavana. That's a Leela way of talking about the Mahashakti. And someone else, Shraddha asked, the dhyan of our guru. Yes, it's the meditation of our guru. Yes, we were talking about that. So we're out of time, right? Or are there other
Pretty
questions?
much. There's one short one, but we can leave it for next week.
What is it?
Hold on. Gunjan Sharma asks, Dandavat Pranam Maharaj, thank you so much for your kind mercy. What is the significance of directions in which various Sakis kunjas are situated at Radha Kunda in Vrindavan, like Lalit Saki in north, Visak Saki in northeast, and so on?
Well, it's the sacred geography. So there's something called sacred geography. That means a geographical space beyond time and space. And it has directions. It has everything that ordinary geographical space has. But it's beyond time and space. So so it has all those things, just like the spiritual body has all the things that a material body has. Krishna has an ego. He has a hankar, manas, chitta, buddhi, and so forth. Earth, water, fire, air, these material ingredients, they're there in the Leela also. So let me give you another example. Somebody asked me, Maharaj, can I have a private moment with you? Yes. I wanted to ask, is there any real sex in the spiritual world? You know what I mean? And I said, no, you don't understand. There's no real sex in the material world. So we'll go on from there. Hope to be back with you next Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Hari Hari Bol.
Haribol, Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai. Okay, just a quick notice of, I always forget that word, announcement. So I'll be interviewing the guy who asked a good question on this class, who is Abhay Krishna. I'll be interviewing him next Thursday on the Sadhaka interviews. Should be interesting. He's got a pretty colorful past. And I think that's it for now. I hope I'll see you all next Thursday and then Sunday. Okay, Haribo.